Good afternoon, Pasadenans and heroes everywhere. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier, here today with RabbiChat, brought to you by Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. Thanks for tuning in to our Facebook Live page, our YouTube Live page, and Twitch. Wherever you're coming from, you are more than welcome here. This is a place where you can ask me anything, but I reserve the right to ask you a question. Based on this week's Parsha, my question for you is, have you ever caught the bus? And I don't mean like in a commuting sense. I don't mean like if you were Detective Keanu Reeves in the movie Speed. He was in that, right? And he tried to catch that bus. That was kind of the whole point of the movie. But like a dog that is chasing a bus but doesn't quite know what he or she would do if she caught the bus. So this is a curious topic, but it's one that's present for this Parsha, present for me as well. And if you've got any stories about that, I would love to hear them right after this brief musical interlude. Stick around. All right, everybody, nice to see you. It's only fair that you can also see me. So that's not the right screen. That's our old screen. I keep hitting that button. Let's go to this one, full screen, in my studio here in beautiful sunny Southern California. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier. I think the dog chewed all the Velcro off my Dodgers cap. But that happens in real life and here on live internet streaming, so I thought I'd share it with you. Today we're talking about the Torah portion of the week, the Parashat HaShavua, as they say in Hebrew with a bad accent. And it is Shlach Lacha, one of my favorite ones to say. B'chalotcha is like my least, that was last week, that was like my least favorite one to say. Shlach Lacha, that's like my favorite one to say. It's also one of my favorite parshiot, one that speaks to my heart, one that just tells my story at so many points in my life, including this one. Some very important teachings in there. For example, where does the concept of minyan come from? Not those little, Twinkie-shaped dudes that are in that cartoon, but minyan as in a quorum for Jewish prayer actually has its roots in this week's Parsha. So we'll talk about that in a second. I want to make sure you take the time and have the courage to ask me anything. And I'll be looking here at the multi-chat to see who is joining us and see what kind of questions people have. I'm especially curious about your own story of catching the bus. So far I see Natalie Sirota's in the house from the land of YouTube, says Shalom y'all. She's speaking my language. Trig Bell says, I'm Sandra Bullock. I'm not Keanu, I'm Sandra Bullock. I think she was the bus driver. I have to confess, I've never seen that movie. I've only seen clips of that movie, but I know what I'm watching this weekend. Tamerlane Garrison in the house. Hello, let's see how long I last before it freezes up and I have to switch to Twitch. Okay, well, I'll take that bet. Good to see you here from Facebook. Kay Dixie is here on YouTube. Says, hi, friends. Hi there. Let's see. Dakota Black is, I'm always impressed with your typing in Hebrew. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Good Shabbos. Now it's in Yiddish. That's where I'm have a little bit harder time. Was geht's ihr? I think that's what you're saying. Trig Bell says, is that like the dog chasing its own tail, Rabbi? Yes, I've seen that happen. She does it from time to time. I have my guest, I would say my guest star, my co-host. She's more of an engineer. She's in the background squeaking on a chicken. Callie sometimes catches her tail. And when she does, she's savage about it, so I don't know how she stands it. Trig Bell says, hi, Tammy. Everybody says hi to each other. Hi, Trig and Tammy. Hello, everyone. I love the Havara that we've got going here. Let's see, Trig Bell, it's classic. It is a classic film, but it's a hole in my education, frankly. Trig Bell says, hello, fellow Washingtonians. Speaking to our friend Kathy, who's just moved up there. Dakota Black, I've caught the bus right in the nose too. Sometimes you don't catch the bus by the tail. Sometimes the bus catches you in the face. Michael Pacheco says, "Hey all, one thing I love about watching YouTube Twitch stream is the intro music. You learn so much about the streamer." I just, you know, I'll confess, there's nothing earth shattering about my intro music. When I had my podcast, I got very generous permission from Joey Weissenberg to use one of my favorite tunes of his for the intro and outro to the Jew Curious Show podcast. Here, I'm using this great streaming platform called Streamlabs OBS, or Slobs is its nickname. And they have this thing, what is it called? Jingle Tunes or Jingle Punks, Jingle Tracks? Let's see, this is good radio. Jingle Punks. Jingle Punks is a music app where you have a lot of open source music that you can add to your thing. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to see what I could put together in terms of Jewish sounding music. There's a Hava Nagila in there somewhere, and Bossa Nova. I'm a big Bossa Nova fan. Always sets the mood for me. And so some Yiddish music, some klezmer music, a little bit of bossa nova, and I put it on shuffle, and that probably tells you more about me than you ever wanted to know. So thanks for that, Michael. Good to see you here, man. Oh, Vasmaktia. I couldn't read the Hebrew there. Vasmaktia just means what's up. Let's see. Brittanness is in the house. The now what, I guess, is just keep being Jewish, right? I think Britton is speaking to our own experience of catching the bus. So this is a big question for me, and I'll get to why maybe in a little bit, although I don't want to spoil it. There's some cool things coming that are bubbling up at PJTC, but in many ways I feel like I've caught the bus. But first, let's learn a little bit of Torah together. This week's Parsha Shlach Lecha is possibly, I'm going to say like at least top 5 pivotal moments in the narrative of the Torah. Right, at least we're talking about the first 5 books of Moses. What happens? So we have the creation, and we have the first family. That was Genesis. We had Exodus was our redemption from captivity and our journey into the sort of our first foray into the wilderness. We get the 10 Commandments as the best guide for life for a free people. We spend Leviticus dwelling on the concept of holiness. What is not only, just let's say professional holiness, what's the role of the priests and how do they do their business, but what does it mean for us to be a nation of priests and a holy people? Because our God is holy, is set apart. And what does that require of us? And once we have a good grounding in that, we're back in the wilderness, people. This is Bamidbar, which, as I shared this, I think in one of my sermons last week, Bamidbar for me is a meditation on fear and courage, right? What does it mean to be afraid? What does it mean to have courage despite one's fear? As you don't need me to remind you, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the resolution to act while feeling fear. Otherwise, it takes no courage whatsoever if you'd have no fear. So there's all sorts of fears that are exposed, dissected, worked through in Bamidbar. The fear of being in a strange place, in a place of ownerlessness. That's what Midbar or wilderness means. What do I do when I'm in a place? There's no sheriff in town, right? There's God. Moses talks to God from time to time. We got this Torah, that's pretty cool. But other than that, nobody else is watching and nobody else is telling me what to do. How do I negotiate that space with security? Because it means nobody's watching anybody else either. The fear of the other. A big part of last week's Parsha was Moses and Aaron ganging up on Moses because Moses had married someone, a Cushite woman, as they say, from outside the tribe. And that caused them fear and consternation. Eventually, we're going to get to Parashat Korach, where Korach, who is of the same family group as Moses, he's afraid of his status. Like, why do you get to be in charge, right? Why Aaron? Why not us? We have the same yichus, we have the same pedigree that you do. What's my role in this new society? So that fear of status, and how does that play out for Korach? Gets eaten by a hole. Sorry about that. But for me, the pinnacle of this moment of fear is, I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to check my music levels real quick because I'm about to get to the good stuff. Make sure I'm not, don't have too many jingle punks going on in the background. All right, I think we're good. So I'll turn it down a little bit. Because this pinnacle, this moment of fear, is when Bnei Israel, when the Jewish people, be called that later, right now they're Bnei Israel, when the Jewish people catch the bus, right? We have made this journey through the wilderness for like a couple of years now, and we get to the bank of the Jordan River. We sort of went the roundabout way, and all we have to do is cross that river into the land that God promised us, a land flowing with milk and honey, right? The land that was promised to Avram Avinu, Abraham, our ancestor. And we get some good questions in the chat right now. I'll get back to that in a second. All we have to do is cross this river, and the land is ours, and God's going to take care of us. And we come up to the brink, and we balk. Right. The shlach lecha is when Moses says to the various tribes, send spies. God says to Moses. Moses says to the people, send for yourself, shlach lecha, 12 spies, 12 scouts. Let's say they're not like wearing trench coats and sunglasses and have like pens that shoot bullets or anything. They are scouts. Send 12 scouts into the land, because you don't want to just all go at once. They might wake some people up and they'll get startled. Send these scouts, and then you'll know how to go into the land. And so, send one person from each of the 12 tribes. They go into the land. They come back, and they don't look right. They're a little bit shaky, right? And they say, "Hey, is the land?" And people say, "Hey, is the land as awesome as God said it would be?" And they're like, "Yeah, but there's a problem, right? First off, yes, milk, honey flowing." The whole bit. And anybody who's studied with me for more than a year knows what's coming next. There's also giant fruit. But you know who eats giant fruit, don't you? Giants do. So the land is full of giants, and they're very scary. And so we're thinking maybe we should just stay here. And so they take a vote. And 2 people, let's talk about the majority first. 10 people say, you don't have to keep this promise. We're going to park it right here. We're going to be fine. Thank you for the offer of this land, and we are too scared, frankly. We're not going to. We didn't come out here to die. But 2 of the scouts said, no, we're scared too, but we got this, right? And these were Joshua and Caleb. And Joshua was sort of Moses's second in command. His aide de camp, as they say in Spanish. I don't know. And Caleb was sort of was Joshua's assistant. And they said, you know what? We're scared too, but God promised us this place and has been with us this whole time. Let's do this. Let's give it a shot. And so this is the moment at which Bnei Israel catch the bus. They've been chasing this dream for, some might say 2 years, some might say generations in Egypt. And they get there, and it's literally a step away. And they balk because they're afraid. They catch the bus, and they don't know what to do with it. And so God hears this and says, and I think I don't know if this is a Zig Ziglarism, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. I don't want to, elevate Zig Ziglar to scripture, although he's said some smart things. But that was effectively God's answer. Like, look, if you don't think that you can take this, you're probably right. It could be that you were raised as a slave and you don't have the sense of agency or courage required to overcome this fear. So I tell you what we're going to do. Us, God's with us. We're going to keep walking, right? We are going to keep walking. Doesn't say exactly how long, but just says we're going to keep walking until everybody who was an adult or older, like 20 years old and up, when we left Egypt, we're going to walk until everybody's dead. But if you were under 20 when we left Egypt, or you were born along the way, they can go into the land. And this winds up being a 40-year sentence, right? Because we caught the bus, or we didn't have any bus fare, or we didn't know where to get on, or we just said, you know what, I'm going to go chase another garbage truck. that and our lesson, our penance, our punishment, our consequence for that was to keep walking for 40 years. And the lesson that, sometimes a generation has to fade into the desert before real change can be made. And that's another piece of this. So that's why I asked this question. Have you ever caught the bus? Have you ever had one of these moments, a dream that you've been working for a long time, a job that you really wanted, a relationship that you really wanted, and you got there and you're like, now what? Or maybe this isn't what I thought it would be, and let's turn around and go back. I remember one time when I moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota, I was working in finance at the time, and I really wanted a job at a particular company. And should I say the name of the company? I won't say, because this is the Temples thing. I won't say the name of the company. I don't know if they exist anymore. It was a finance company that may or may not have destroyed the economy, but that's neither here nor there. There were a lot of finance companies that destroyed the economy in 2008. I think I just happened to work for one of them at one time. But I really wanted to work for this place because they did cool stuff with financial engineering, and that's what I'd studied in school. And I said it to my friend, like, if I could get a job at that place, that is my dream job, right? And then I worked there for 18 months. I had a really great boss, had a great time. I was a contractor. My contract ended. I moved on, did some other things. And then, later on, I'm as a contractor, as a consultant, I'm talking to that same friend. I'm saying, hey, I just got a new job. And she's like, she was making fun of me. She says, is it your dream job? And I said, what I figured out is that my dreams have nothing to do with jobs. So, I think my dream job is not having a job. But that was until I became a rabbi. So that's got me kind of excited. So I'm just going to take care of some. I'm going to take care of some spammerinos here in the chat. Come on. Okay, and Blockerino. Okay, excellent. Just got sometimes you got to clean some stuff up when it's live. We have a blessing for the Torah study here. Thank you. We have a YouTube video shared. Let's see, what's the name of the company? I'm not going to say because I don't want to get either me or my employer sued. Hava Nagila by David Eshet, pretty cool version. Thanks for the compliment, Rabbi. Natalie Sirota says, in my life each time I think I have caught the bus, I then am issued a transfer ticket onto the next bus. So true. So true. So let's see. Dakota, thanks for the Yiddish. People ask me already. I didn't say the blessing before Torah, so I'm just kind of giving a little vort. Like if we're going to really read from the Torah, then I definitely like to say the blessing La Sopa Divrei Torah. This time, just kind of giving a little drasha. So please forgive me. Let's see. Got a great. I do say ask me anything. How do you feel about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Boy, people throwing softballs today. I will say that it breaks my heart that a conflict exists. It is a conflict between two peoples who have lived in a land for a very long time that have made various treaties that held for some time that often got broken. I do believe that Israel is a miracle in our time and has the undisputed right to defend itself from people who would push them into the sea. No question. Do I engage in telling the IDF what to do or political forces in Israel what to do? I do not. I do think that when we see things being handled badly, we should speak up. I don't think that either side is without its flaws or faults or occasions of violence. But at my core, I believe that Israel has this is like the lowest bar ever, has a right to exist. Why is that such a low bar? Israel has a right to exist and a right to defend itself from people who would deny its existence. So that's how I feel about the conflict, and I pray for peace, and I pray for cool heads on both sides. So I hope that answers your question. Michael Pacheco, I'm considering asking my rabbi to learn Torah trope. How challenging is it? I'm a musical person, so I'm thinking it should be pretty doable. I will agree with you in the sense that if you have an ear for music, it makes it way easier. Whenever I'm working with a bar mitzvah student, I mostly work on, their Divrei Torah, their sermons at this point, but I used to work with students at every step of the process, learning trope and that is the cantillation, the musical phrases that go along with Torah reading. and before we would get started, I would ask a kid to like sing "Happy Birthday" to me, or I'd play him a little song and I would ask him to repeat the notes, or I'd sing a note and ask him to match pitch, and 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 then I could tell what kind of year we were going to have. Some kids have that talent. Some kids have other wonderful talents. I'll put it that way. So I'll say if you have a musical background, it makes it way easier because you're, learning the relative pitch of different things. Yeah, if you can see the trope marks as sort of shorthand for musical phrases, that helps. Like every trope mark or every combination of trope marks you can actually chart it out on sheet music, and it's pretty regular and repeatable. Sometimes there's irregularities, or it's like, okay, if this one's by itself, it sounds this way. If this one comes after this other one, here's what the phrase sounds like. But that's great. There are a few different things you can get. I used a piece of software called Trope Trainer. This is kind of old school, probably 10, 20 years old, but it really helped me out. Nowadays if I see like a rare trope mark and I forget what it is, I have like a little app on my phone that you can punch in. I'm doing Torah trope and it's this symbol. What does it sound like? And it helps me out. But the more you practice, the more it just becomes second nature till you can read it cold, like I do 80% of the time. So if you have a musical ear, if you can read music especially, and if you can conceptualize the little trope marks on the page as standing in for a musical phrase, and also what helped me was when I started to understand that the trope marks weren't just, for show. It wasn't just to make the Torah sound pretty. This was actually punctuation back in the day. If you look at a Torah scroll or most old books, the notion of having punctuation that was different from letter sounds is a relative novelty in printed language. Having spaces between words is a relative novelty in printed language. I think I learned that from Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, perhaps. Actually, wonderful near future cyberpunk sci-fi that has a deep dive into ancient Near Eastern religion and texts. So if anybody likes Torah trope and computers and sci-fi, Snow Crash is where it's at. So yeah, I think that'll be a fun project for you. A great place to start is there's a prayer that you'll often hear at services, at least at PJTC. There's a couple of things we do every single service that can help you learn trope, and they are the first and third passages of the Shema. When you hear us say Shema Yisrael, etc., there's a pause for a sentence that we say sotto voce, and then there's the V'ahavta. So just after repetition, I just have the tune in my head. The trick is that tune is Torah trope. So if you can practice that prayer, the V'ahavta comes right after the Shema, and quotation from Deuteronomy. It's actually the rest of the paragraph after those 6 words of the Shema. And if you can see what those trope marks are and you learn that tune, you can start to notice what trope marks go with what musical phrases. And then we usually do the second passage silently because it's a little bit theurgic, and so some people uncomfortable. And then we get into the third paragraph, which is about tzitzit, which is where we get the commandment that we will put tzitzit on the corners of our garments to remind us of the commandments that God gives us to distinguish our lives and not be led astray by our hearts or by our eyes, but always in front of us. That is also in Torah trope. So if you, and I think we have recordings of our services online on YouTube, or just watch our services live. When we get to that part of the service, see if you can find that passage in your prayer book, and then you can practice those tunes at least 4 times a week, or twice a week, Friday night and Saturday. And that's Torah trope, and that's that usually when we teach Torah trope to kids, we start with the V'ahavta because they've heard that in services their whole life, and it's like, hey, did you know you already know Torah trope, and here's how, and then it makes it a little bit easier. So just a few minutes left. I will tell you about my own personal adventure in catching the bus, and it's happening right now. And I'm hesitating a little bit because there's some cool stuff. I don't want to spoil the surprise. It's like, well, you already told us that they didn't get to go into the land of Israel, Rabbi. I had to wait 40 years. Spoiler alert. Come on, it's been the best-selling book since before books, so that's not a spoiler alert. But spoiler alert, there are, let's say, some changes coming soon to PJTC's Shabbat services. Not permanent changes necessarily, but some experimentation that we're doing. I think I may have teased this in some other live streams that we've done. More, don't freak out. More communication is going to be coming out this on soon as to what's going to happen, why we're doing it, why we are pushing the envelope a little bit. Part of it is motivation from the congregation to say, hey, let's keep things fresh. Part of it is this wonderful collab that we did. We had some, let's say, experimental iterations of totally kosher Jewish services. And people said that I'm surprised how much I like that. We should do more of that. And so Cantor Ruth and I have been working on how do we do this in a holy, dignified way that preserves this space of Shabbat. Trick is, anytime you change anything about a regular Shabbat service, there's going to be somebody who's like, you just ruined Shabbat for me. You just took it out of my hand, wadded it up, threw it in the trash, lit the trash on fire, and then knocked the house down with a bulldozer. That's what you did when you changed that tune. So I'm not naming names, but some people get very upset when you change the tunes at services. And so do I. Like I've been in services where I'm like, that's not how you say the Via Hafta. This isn't Jewish. This is something else altogether. I've grown more patient in my old age. So there are some things that we're changing, but it's not because we're bored and we want to keep things fresh, and it's not because we want to cater to other people who might be bored with our traditional liturgy. It's because we are in a moment that challenges us to question every assumption that we have. Not that all of those assumptions are unfounded. Torah is still king in my book, and queen, and Jack, and Tan, and all the way down. That assumption holds. But how we connect people to Torah, we make assumptions about that might not be holding. How we keep things relevant, how we keep people engaged, how we keep people interested, how we keep people feeling a spiritual sense of spiritual uplift when they're singing a tune that was written as a 19th century German polka, which are some of our traditional tunes are. How we keep people having access to growth in their Jewishness or in their Jew curiousness. And so now we're at this moment where we're looking at services and saying, what can we do? What can we not do? What are some dreams that we have had about greater spirituality in Jewish services? And I'll tell you, over the last couple of weeks that we've been thinking about this and talking about this, I've felt like the dog that caught the bus. Like I've been wanting to change things up for so long for various reasons, and now we have the opportunity to do so, and I'm a little bit panicked about it. But I am guided by the example not of the 10 spies,